It is 9:45 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It is the 10th day of July 2025, and this is episode 1131 of Bitcoin, and we're going to go through all of it today. I got U.S. government looking at stable coins as a key factor of saving the dollar and not letting it, I don't know, melt away into whatever it's going to become. Jack Ma, somehow or another, even though we don't know where he is, or at least once he disappeared, I never saw him come back. All right, so if you guys know that Jack Ma is running around and you know where he is, let me know, because I still think he's kind of missing. But his company, Alibaba, and Ant Group, I don't know, man. There's some stuff going on there. We'll get into it. And then there's going to be some news from Frank Corva about the crypto market structure hearing, which occurred, and that's going to be important. Nayib Bukele thinks that Democrats are salty. Maybe they are. Maybe they go well with chocolate. I don't know. But White Noise has been released. It is a private messaging app based on Nostr. We've all been wanting it. We've all been talking about it. Why? Because DMs on Nostr suck. They just do. It's not, I don't really think it's, the protocol's fault. I think there's only so much that we can do at any given time, or at least that the developers can do at any given time when it comes down to the protocol level of how you're going to handle private messaging when you're looking at the structure of Nostr as it stands today. I lose zero sleep on it, but people have been clamoring for some kind of, some kind of replacement for Nostr DMs, and it looks like a couple of people have gotten together and, well, they've come up with something, and it should be interesting. Perplexity and Coinbase are working together to scam the living crap out of everybody who fancies themselves as a day trader. And we've got a couple of companies here adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet. But first, I'm not even going to go to the U.S. government story. I want to talk a little bit about something that I've been cooking on, I don't know, over the last few years, honestly. I've been thinking about designing, even though I'm just going to say it up front. No, I'm not a grazer. No, I do not have cattle. No, I've never built a silvopasture system before in my entire life, but there's this image in my head about a silvopasture design for rotational grazing, wood harvest, nut harvest, forage harvest. It's in my head. It won't leave. And it's like the Forest Walker thing. If you haven't read the Forest Walker article, you can go to my website, BitcoinAndShow.com, and read it there. But Forest Walker was sort of the same way. It was this weird thing, this weird idea that was in my head, and I could not stop thinking about it. Luckily, we have this thing that humans can do. We can write. We can write our ideas down. Sometimes we show them to other people and sometimes we don't. But once you write it down, something magical happens. There's actually two things that magically happen. One, you get to stop thinking about it. It stops cluttering your mind. This is a real thing that happens with humans, by the way. You can't stop thinking about something, right? Especially if it's an idea. If it's something external that's happened to you and it's part of real life, that's different. That's not what I'm talking about. But it's like some people will come up with ideas and they just can't shake it. And the only way that I have found to be able to quiet the noise is to put it on paper. And it doesn't have to be on paper. It could be in a word processor. That's what most of us do nowadays. But you've got to get it out. Well, alongside the Forest Walker, there was another idea that was brewing in my head. Actually, I started thinking about it a little bit before I started thinking about Forest Walker. And I can't stop thinking about it, so therefore I've got to pull it out. And so it's a silvopasture design on Broadacre, right? It's yet one more thing, like it's sort of like Forrest Walker, where if you read it, half of the people that read it will go, "This dude's insane. This is never going to happen. And here's why that this won't happen. And here's another reason why it won't happen. And here's another reason why it won't happen." But none of that matters. None of that matters. If I had said, "Yeah, this is too far-fetched to actually be in existence," then I wouldn't have put it on paper. And you know where this thing would have resided? In my head, confusing me even further. So Cathedral's the same way, and that's the name of the project. I'm calling it Cathedral. There's various reasons why, but I've talked about this a couple of times, but now it's getting to the point where I've got a lot of it down in a format that I can start cobbling it together to relate to other people what it is that I'm seeing in my head when it comes to this very large acreage scale silvopasture. How long we're talking about before it would be able to come into existence. What kind of management it would actually take to be able to run such a thing, because if I were to put all the elements into this thing that's in my head, it would be impossible for a small team to actually be able to manage. It just wouldn't happen. You'd have to do it in a different way. So that will be part of it. What kind of trees? How do they interact with each other in the tree lanes? That's part of it. How many products can be produced from this thing? That's part of it. What things that aren't directly involved in raising animals in the silvopasture system could also be considered as goods, services, products, that kind of thing? That's going to be part of it. But the system is freaking huge. It's going to be several articles. It's going to be several podcasts. It's going to be as many different ways as that I can get this thing out of my head is exactly as many ways as I'm going to use. It's coming, but it's probably not going to see the light of day, or at least the first article won't see the light of day until after I get back from Colorado, which I'm leaving for on Monday, and I won't be back for 2 weeks. I'm going to do my level best to continue to produce the BitcoinAnd show while I am on vacation, but there will inevitably be gaps in the show. So just be prepared. I'm not going away. I'm just going on vacation, but I will try to continue to cut these episodes. And just be aware, the cathedral is coming. And it's probably going to piss some people off, especially people that have any experience whatsoever with grazing animals in any kind of pasture system, much less a silvopasture system. But at this point, I don't care. It's either get this idea out of my head, or I will be in a straitjacket and some nurse with a mole on her face, probably with the last name Ratchet, not going to be a good picture. All right, so I either get it out of my head or I go ape shit insane. So, with that said, just be on the lookout. Now, let's get into today's Bitcoin news, because it's all the news that you can use. That's why you're here at the BitcoinAnd Show. Cointelegraph, Christopher Tepedino has this one. United States sees stablecoins as key. It's a key to preserving the dollar's reserve status, according to a report from a company named Sygnum. Yes, Sygnum. I love these names. The United States views dollar-pegged stablecoins as tools to help reverse the decline of the dollar's status as a global reserve currency, according to a new report from digital asset banking group Sygnum. To accelerate that goal, the current administration is encouraging the growth of the stablecoin market and urging Congress to pass related legislation. The insights come from Sygnum's latest report examining the dollar's standing as a reserve currency and the United States government's efforts to preserve that. Donald Trump and key members of his administration, including Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Al and David Sachs, Trump's crypto and AI czar, who leads the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, are pushing for the swift passing of the Genius Act, which regulates stablecoins and their issuers in the United States. And the act passed the Senate on June 17th, but is currently sitting in the House of Representatives. While the U.S. government is pushing dollar-pegged stablecoins, resistance is growing worldwide. On April the 16th, Italy's finance minister warned that United States dollar stablecoins pose a greater risk than tariffs, and that the appeal of these stablecoins should not be underestimated, pausing to say, "You are correct, sir." I disagree with nothing that he just said. Fireblock's policy chief, Dea Markova, told Cointelegraph that there is a growing demand for stablecoins not pegged to the United States dollar, despite the limited liquidity for these coins at the moment. Signum has partnered with Fireblocks for an instant settlement network that includes stablecoin transactions. 3 major entities in Abu Dhabi have teamed up to launch a dirham-pegged stablecoin pending approval from United Arab Emirates regulators. The Signum report cites demand for U.S. dollars coming from retail inside developing countries, which face rising inflation and depreciating local currency. Quote, "The United States administration believes that dollar-denominated stablecoins can serve this demand and reverse the dollar's eroding reserve currency status," notes the report. Caitlin Tischhauser, head of research at Signum, told Cointelegraph, quote, "The dominance of the dollar stablecoins across the crypto industry can help reinforce the dollar's monetary dominance if the blockchain-based decentralized economy expands substantially," he added, quote, "However, I am not sure that there is a compelling case for stablecoins moving the needle on dollar dominance beyond that unless retail use accelerates in developing countries on the back of incentives," end quote. In addition, resistance may come from BRICS, a bloc of 10 countries seeking to reduce reliance on the U.S. dollar. And according to Signum, the group is advancing a multipolar financial system that favors using multiple fiat currencies for cross-border trade and settlement rather than a single global reserve currency. Now, that last one is an interesting sentence. Let me read that one again. According to Signum, the group is advancing a multipolar financial system that favors using multiple fiat currencies for cross-border trade and settlement rather than a single global reserve currency, because everybody is still under the assumption that they have some kind of power. See, this is what the globalists never really, I don't think they ever really thought it through. You know, making everybody connected. They always talked about a one world government and all that kind of stuff, and I don't need to go tinfoil hat on that one. That's actually been said on several occasions, specifically by George W. Bush. He said it on several occasions, New World Order, and his old man did too. New World Order, one world government. They said this all the time. It's not a conspiracy theory. There's several instances of Clinton, Bush the first. It doesn't really matter. But I don't think that any of these people, from Council of Foreign Relations to IMF to World Bank, have ever thought about the ramifications of what that actually means. It means that every single country whose elite inside that country have enjoyed some sort of power are not going to be the ones that crumble first. Sure, their retail and their citizenry will go, "Oh my God, please rule me, daddy, rule me harder." But the elite of those countries, whether you're talking about frickin' Ghana or El Salvador or Canada or nobody wants to lose their regional power. So we end up with a situation where they keep talking about, oh, well, we're going to have our own currency. We're going to have our own stable coin. It's going to be pegged to our own fiat currency. Even though what I just said, even though it makes sense, and now it's not going to make sense because I'm going to say that Bitcoin is the world currency. It is a fundamental language that we can all speak together. and clearly understand each other through no matter how much noise. When I'm in some other country and I want to buy a banana and it's priced in Satoshis, I have an instant clarity and comparison point for what that banana cost in Satoshis in the last country that I might have been in. It's a common language. If the retail and the citizenry portion that is so eager to be dominated by a one world government doesn't get off their ass and take the reins and say, we want everything priced in one currency, that doesn't mean that I'm saying that they will automatically burn their own currency to the ground. Probably not. I'm just saying that I actually think that there's two ways to look at Bitcoin as a world reserve currency, or at least the world's currency itself. And that is, one, it ties everybody together. But then you'll say, but aren't you talking about a one world government, or at least a new world order? Not necessarily. Just because everybody can speak a common language for the first time in the history of the planet does not mean that all these people that speak that language want to be dominated by people who they know are going to be evil, or who will start out good and then slowly or quickly over time become evil. And the only real guard against the very thing that we don't want, which is the New World Order, is a single world currency, not because it binds us politically and economically, but because it sends a clear signal of markets, not only to markets, but the market trying to speak to us. If I go to Abu Dhabi and they want an exorbitant amount of Satoshis for a pair of sneakers that I know cost 10% of that in some other country, I have a clear signal. And then I can clearly make a decision as to what I'm going to do. This, I actually believe, is the story of the Tower of Babel, which has been another article floating around in my mind that needs to be put on paper at one point or another. But the story of the Tower of Babel in the Bible has always been used to talk about how God smote down the people that were trying to build this tower so that they themselves can become God. That's generally the story that you get. I take a completely different take on this. I keep thinking that what happened is that, yeah, God may have been pissed that they were trying to replace God. It wasn't that they wanted to meet God. It wasn't that they were building this tower so that they could physically climb into heaven. Sometimes it's interpreted that way. No. The story in the Bible, generally speaking, has the flavor of they actually wanted to just do away with God and become gods themselves, and they were building this high point so that they could be gods. And God got pissed and said, no, you don't, and caused everybody to start speaking a different language. And everybody that was at the Tower of Babel couldn't understand each other because they sounded like they were babbling, right? That's where we get the word babble. We can't understand. You're babbling. I can't understand what the hell you're talking about. I think that the way that people say it's like, well, they couldn't understand each other. They couldn't tell each other where the bathroom was, or they couldn't tell each other that they wanted to go get lunch. You know, like all the problems that you have when you go visit a foreign country and you don't speak the language. No, that's not how God destroyed that construction. He destroyed the construction by making everybody's money a different value. I think that there's an analogy there that I can work on for the article on how Bitcoin solves the Tower of Babel problem. I don't know what a banana cost in Kenyan, whatever Kenyans trade in. I don't know what a banana cost in Mexico. I don't know what 150 pesos is unless I get a calculator. That's a friction point. I don't want to do that. I don't want to consistently go to the Forex and look at exchange rates between the US dollar, which I can clearly understand when I go to the store because I live in the United States. If I go to Russia, I don't want to do the comparison to rubles. I don't. Okay. It's a friction point that I don't need. But if I start going into other countries and shit's priced in Satoshis, I have an immediate clarity. I speak a common language with the rest of the world. There are two ways to talk to each other. One is what I want for lunch. The other is how much does this cost? You might think that being able to converse with somebody in philosophical terms about God and earth and cattle and whatnot is the more important. I don't think so. I think being able to have a common unit of value that everybody understands will do more for humanity than anything else. So let's move on to this Jack Ma story. Alibaba founder-backed Ant Group is going to integrate Circle's USDC on its blockchain. So speaking more about stablecoins, we've got this one from Francisco Rodriguez out of CoinDesk. The international arm of Ant Group, which is the company backed by Alibaba founder Jack Ma, plans to bring Circle's USDC stablecoin into its proprietary blockchain. The rollout will start once United States regulators certify the dollar peg token under the new federal rules, Bloomberg reported, and the move would give USDC a link to a network that processed more than $1 trillion in global payments last year. A third of those were settled on-chain. That scale could make Ant, A-N-T, the largest overseas corporate user of United States issued stablecoin, and I remind you, it is not Tether, it's Circle. Circle and Tether are going to be, they're huge already. Circle's going to start gaining in momentum, and they're going to fight at one point or another. It's going to be like rock'em sock'em robots. Anyway, Ant International is also applying for a stablecoin license in Singapore, Hong Kong, and Luxembourg, according to the report, and the group wants regulated digital dollars, central bank digital currencies, and tokenized bank deposits to sit side by side on its platform. The company's blockchain currently supports tokenized assets from various financial institutions and has reportedly been working with the People's Bank of China on the country's central bank digital currency, the digital yuan. And Circle shares rose nearly 4% in pre-market trading to $208 a share. All right, so Circle is filled with scum of the earth. Jeremy Allaire is not a good person. He does not like Bitcoin. He tried to destroy Bitcoin back in 2016, 2017. It didn't work, but he didn't go away, and Circle is going to gain momentum because of this. I'm really surprised that the stablecoin issuer in this story is not Tether. And it's not really because I want Tether to win. It's because I want people like Jeremy Allaire to lose. So let's be clear about that. But still, this goes to show that for all the people that hate stablecoins, they're not going away. We've got to figure this out. You've got to figure it out for yourself. You really have to think about it because we've got Bitcoin. And some people will go, well, we don't need it anymore because of stablecoins. No, because stablecoins are back to the very instrument that Bitcoin is trying to replace for obvious reasons. And if you don't know what those reasons are, then you are certainly a newbie to Bitcoin. That's okay, but I can't go through it except to say we've destroyed the money, and not just the United States dollar. All fiat currencies have been completely destroyed. And that's what's causing all of the problems that you see today. You'll go, well, I can't believe it doesn't cause obesity. Yes, it does. But it certainly can't cause houses to fall down. Yes, it does. But we use X, Y, and Z. That's because the currency is broken. It just is. And whatever is pegged to that which is broken takes onto it the very attributes of that which it is attached to. So stablecoins are already inherently broken. Their value depends on a broken system. There's no escaping it. You have to have Bitcoin. And just because stablecoins are here does not actually mean anything's changed at all, other than a control shift of the money. But we've got other fish to fry because myths are busted and conflicts of interest noted at Senate Banking Crypto Market Structure hearing. This is Frank Corva writing for Bitcoin Magazine. Today, the Senate Banking Committee hosted a hearing entitled From Wall Street to Web3, Building Tomorrow's Digital Asset Markets, in which United States senators from both sides of the aisle engaged with crypto industry leaders and digital asset specialists witnessed at the hearing to discuss digital asset market structure. And key themes from the hearing included crypto's role in illicit finance and the conflict of interest associated with the Trump family's involvement in the crypto industry, as well as regulatory jurisdiction. And our good friend, Senate Banking Chairman Tim Scott, presided over the hearing alongside our other good friend, Ranking Member Elizabeth Warren. They were joined by more than a half a dozen other senators and 6 witnesses for 2.5-hour session, or a single 2.5-hour session. And the witnesses included Summer Mersinger, CEO of Blockchain Association, the Jonathan Levin, the CEO of Chainalysis, Dan Robinson, general partner at Paradigm, God forbid, Brad Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple, Timothy Masad, which is a research fellow at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University and former Commodities and Futures Trading Commission chairman, and then Richard W. Painter, the former chief White House ethics lawyer. So, in Senator Scott's opening remarks, he noted that more illegal activities happen with cash rather than crypto. Senate Banking Committee ranking member Senator Elizabeth Warren provided an opposing view in her opening remarks as she made the claim that crypto's total market capitalization has increased. So too has illicit activity on the blockchain, because apparently there's only one blockchain. And if you know anything about this, that's complete garbage. She has no idea how to talk about this in public. Anyway, the senator then cited how North Koreans, of course, have hacked billions of dollars worth of crypto assets, creating a threat to U.S. national security in the process. Levin provided some context, though, as he noted that illicit activity was less than 1% of the overall activity that occurs on blockchains, while adding that this number is higher in traditional markets. Quote, the majority of the activity on blockchains is legitimate activity, he added. With that said, Levin noted that crypto mixers make Chainalysis work in monitoring public blockchains for criminal activity more difficult, but also noted that Chainalysis has seen less use of crypto mixers in terrorist financing than you might expect. And then Senators Raphael Warnock, Chris Van Hollen, and Elizabeth Warren all brought up what they termed was President Trump's conflict of interest in advocating for crypto legislation while he and his family are actively involved in the, oh my God, crypto industry. Okay, hold on. So Senator Warren has owned stock in banks. She uses a bank. She probably uses several banks for a checking account, savings account. She owns bank stocks. Does she have a conflict of interest by being on the Senate Banking Committee? I'm not saying it's good or bad either way. I'm just saying the pot calls the kettle black. Anyway, in Senator Warren's opening remarks, she noted that $7 billion of President Trump's wealth is now in crypto, while Senator Warnock called into question the ethics of Trump having issued a meme coin. Oh, yeah, even I questioned that one. Senator Van Hollen detailed the scenario in which Eric Trump met with an investment firm in the United Arab Emirates regarding a stablecoin that his company, World Liberty Financial, issued ahead of his father's visit to the country. The firm ended up investing $2 billion into that project. The senator then noted that certain crypto legislation would benefit World Liberty Financial. Painter, who argued earlier in the session that, quote, we cannot have the people who are in charge of passing and enforcing crypto legislation have conflicts of interest, and this includes the president, by God, and stated that they were currently witnessing one of the biggest ethical financial violations by a sitting president in the last 100 years. Yeah, bullshit. Biden, Clinton, Bush 1. Probably the last guy that as far as I can tell, there's like literally no proof that Reagan was involved with anything that would have actually gotten him a shit ton of money. I mean, you got the Iran-Contra thing, but I get the feeling that Reagan was like, didn't know anything about it, but it doesn't matter. All these people are compromised. I mean, it doesn't matter what color the flag they wear. Throughout the hearing, however, Mossad argued that the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and the CFTC should work together in regulating the digital asset industry. Quote, the solution is not for Congress to become the regulator. It's for the SEC and the CFTC to work together. Mossad added that the industry has taken advantage of the gap between the SEC and CFTC. Mersinger also noted that she would like to see collaboration between those two agencies, though she stated that she would like to see the CFTC have more power over crypto markets as the agency takes a more principles-based approach, and which Messenger claimed is better for the industry. And then Mossad commented that the importance of taking such an approach, as he said that Congress should think in terms of principles and not detailed rules, because those rules can become obsolete very quickly. Senator Katie Britt also spoke up in favor of a principles-based approach. Approximately halfway through the hearing, Senator Bernie Moreno stated that crypto is more of a generational issue than it is a Republican v. Democrat issue. And Senator Scott praised Senators Cynthia Lummis and Kristen Gillibrand for the legislation that they had drafted starting in 2022. Quote, you look at the internet that and the cypherpunks of the 80s and 90s who were creating the code and using cryptography, and the government was afraid of it. So the NSA called cryptography a weapon and classified it as something that should not be available to the general public, stated Senator Lummis. Quote, but our courts in this country decided that cryptography and code writing is protected free speech under the First Amendment, and that was a game changer. It made possible for those very brilliant minds to make available to each other through open source the cryptography and code writing that made it possible in 2009 for the first digital asset to appear on the scene. Quote, so now we're at the point where from 2009 to where we are today, we have a mature industry that is asking us to provide clear rules of the road. We're in the right place at the right time to help these innovators to take their rightful place in the global economy, an asset that is important to the country, that is important to individual freedom, that is important to the unbanked and the underbanked, and that will make available to people the opportunity to grow wealth, as opposed to our own US dollar, which is, by design, decreasing in value. So there you go. There's a rundown on the hearing. Like all hearings that I have ever really been watched or whatever, I don't see the value of the hearings. I not just this hearing. I don't see the value of any hearings. Can somebody please point to a concrete example of where a hearing changed something? And it's got to be a direct example, not a, well, we because the senator in 1979 said this at this hearing in 1983, clearly that, no, it's not clear at all. I mean, I need a direct example of something, a product falling out of a Senate or a House of Representatives hearing on anything that resulted directly in change. Otherwise, it's a waste of my freaking time. Thankfully, however, GreatGhee is not, and it's right in front of me. It's 8 ounces of grass-fed, pasture-raised sunshine in a bottle. If you don't know what ghee is, it's clarified butter. It's basically where you kind of heat the butter up. You don't cook the crap out of it, but you do get it a little hot enough so that the protein solids that are still left in the butter fall out, and then you can skim just nothing but the pure, beautiful animal fat off of it. Why? Because it becomes shelf stable. You do me a favor. Go shove a bunch of butter into like a jam jar and shove it on the shelf for like 6 months and see what it looks like after that amount of time. See if you want to eat that. Why? Protein offers a carbon source that is more unstable to break apart by bacteria and fungi than the pure animal fat. And that's why we have ghee. That, and it's beautiful in flavor. This, I've got a jar of this stuff that GreatGhee sent me. When I say it's like sunshine in a bottle, it's the taste as well. It tastes bright. It's a beautiful flavor. It's absolutely gorgeous. If you are any kind of fan of Indian food at all, you've got to use ghee. And if you're going to use ghee, use GreatGhee. He doesn't have a website per se, but he does have a Shopstr storefront that anybody with a web browser can go to. However, I cannot give you the URL because it's too long to say on the air. Go to the show notes. All of my vendors are under the Circle P heading in the show notes, and any possible way that you can get a hold of them to buy their product is represented in that show note. And by the way, you need to put BitcoinAnd in the Shopstr order comment section. You don't get a discount, but it tells GreatGhee that you heard about his product here on the Circle P. This is advertising, this value for value advertising. So that means that he gets to determine whether or not the sale that I made for him was valuable enough to send me Satoshis. Hopefully he does. And hopefully you're the person that causes him to send me the Satoshis, because when you support GreatGhee, GreatGhee supports me, and I can support you by bringing the show to you day after day. And the ghee isn't as salty as the Democrats, according to El Salvador's President Bukele, who's mocking the Senate Democrats over the Bitcoin scrutiny that they're showing to him. Oh my. Matt DeSalvo from Decrypt. El Salvador President Nayib Bukele was defending his country's crypto-friendly policies and taunting foreign leaders on X this week, with U.S. Democratic senators being his latest target. In a pithy X note on Tuesday, Bukele mocked a bill submitted by Senators Tim Kaine, Chris Van Hollen, and Alex Padilla in June to probe his country's use of cryptocurrency and consider sanctioning him. Ha 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 ha, the Dems are just salty, Bukele wrote. The El Salvador Accountability Act of 2025 proposes investigating the Salvadoran government's cryptocurrency use as a tool for, quote, regime corruption. It would also require the country's assets to be frozen. President Bukele has frequently mocked foreign authorities on social media in the past, including the International Monetary Fund and the Venezuelan government. The eccentric leader's response comes as he cozies up to President Donald Trump, who has controversially used El Salvador's mega prison to hold some people that's been deported from the United States. Still, despite President Bukele's budding bromance with Trump, Democrats are pressing for an assessment of whether Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies have been used in El Salvador as a vector to evade financial sanctions imposed on other countries, end quote. El Salvador in 2021 made Bitcoin legal tender along with the US dollar, and the new law meant that businesses had to accept the cryptocurrency. After a tiff with the IMF, with whom El Salvador was negotiating a development grant, President Bukele said okay and agreed to scale back the law. Now, businesses no longer have to accept the digital asset as payment. But still, Bukele has continued buying the cryptocurrency for the country's coffers, drawing ire from some foreign politicians because they don't want him getting any kind of real power. And that's what comes with wealth. The Salvadoran government was initially opaque about its crypto buys, with blockchain sleuths previously just using Bukele's cheeky tweets to tally up Bitcoin holdings. Bukele has since shared a BTC address that currently holds 6,232 BTC, worth $690 million. Bitcoin surged to a new all-time high price above $112,000 on Wednesday and is currently settled to the mark just north of $111,000, but I think we've hit a new all-time high again. Anyway, despite ongoing criticism that Bukele has created an authoritarian government, Bukele remains very popular. A June poll from the newspaper in the country gave him an approval rating of 8.5 out of 10. The Salvadoran government's press department did not immediately respond to Decrypt's request for comment. We need to back off of other countries, not just El Salvador. And I'm talking about the United States. Who in their right mind proposes a bill in our government to investigate another government, especially one that's like not committing warfare? I don't see El Salvador's troops on the other side of any of their borders. I don't see them making incursions to Southern California on the Pacific coast. I don't see them doing anything other than just being El Salvador. So what's the fucking problem? It's embarrassing being a citizen of a country that wastes their fucking time with a stack of papers trying to get some kind of, sanctions on El Salvador's Bitcoin strategy? Really? This is what we're spending our time on. We want to sanction El Salvador's Bitcoin strategy. How the fuck do you sanction a Bitcoin strategy? This is ridiculous and embarrassing. My God, it's so embarrassing, I'm just going to have to run the numbers. Futures and commodities, I got West Texas Intermediate oil down 2.3% to 66.81 a barrel. Brent North Sea is down almost 2 full points to 68.88. Natural gas doing its thing. It's in the green, up just over 3 full points, back to $3.31 per 1,000 cubic feet, and gasoline fell 1.5. It's down to $2.15 a gallon. All of your shiny metal rocks are doing well. However, gold not doing anywhere close to as well as the others. It's only up 0.16% to 33.26 and 2 dimes. However, silver is up 1.8, platinum is up over 2%, copper is up 2%, and palladium is up almost 5 full percent, leaving its little retarded brother gold in the dust. Anyway, ag is kind of fully mixed today, really. Biggest winner appears to be wheat, 1.28% to the upside. Biggest loser, as usual, is chocolate, 3.5% to the downside. Meanwhile, live cattle is down 0.6, lean hogs are down 1.25, and feeder cattle just flipped to the green but moving sideways, essentially. And the Dow is up 0.6, the S&P is up 0.25, NASDAQ is down 0.25, and the S&P Mini is up almost a full point. Meanwhile, holy shit, $113,420. Yes, it is definitely a new all-time high. We're at a $2.26 trillion market cap, and we can get 34.1 ounces of the retarded coin for with 401 Bitcoin, of which there are 19,890,238 and a third of, and average fees per block are low, 0.03 BTC, taken in fees on a per block basis, of which there are 3. A lot of 3s today. 3 blocks carrying 6,300 unconfirmed transactions waiting to clear at high priority rates of 2 Satoshis per VByte, and low priority is going to get you in at 1. Hash rate rising again, 913.3 exahashes per second. So do with that what you will. From Mecha Musk, which was yesterday's episode of BitcoinAnd, I got 2 Angry Cunts podcast. 2 Angry Cunts. It's the TAC crew. 2 Angry Cunts podcast with a row of ducks. 2,222 Satoshi says, from one value for value podcast to another, thank you, sir. No, thank you. Turkey with 1,000 says, El Guadalote is back in the roost. I don't know what that means. I guess you're talking about yourself, Turkey. It is good to actually hear you say something. Well, okay, read something that you wrote. Okay. Psyduck with 730 says, Psyduck. Permanerd 210 says, all the credit unions I know of in Canada are owned to businesses and the general public, unless you are a trucker, of course. Oh, yeah, I think I know where he's going with that one. And Speedy with 100 says, nothing. That's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. And here we go. Oh, by the way, I forgot to ask you, donate to the show. If this is a rule that Adam Curry has, if you don't ask, if you don't remind people to support the show, they're not going to support the show. Not because they hate you, but because they didn't get the kick in the pants. So donate to the show. And you can do that. Honestly, the easiest way to do that, if you're a Bitcoiner, is to just zap me on Nostr. Tell me that you love the show so that I know that it's a boost for the show. Or boost me on Fountain or any other value for value podcasting 2.0 enabled app. I mean, if you're still using Apple Podcasts for your podcast, or God forbid SoundCloud or whatever else is out there, you got to step up your game, bro, man. You got to get to podcasting 2.0. And that's where you can support the show. And that's what I'm asking you to do. Please, please, please consider supporting the show so that I don't starve, because that could always happen. And living under a bridge is not the kind of hermitage that I want for my old age. So please, please, please consider supporting the BitcoinAnd podcast. Now, from Atlas 21, White Noise is born. The private messaging app based on Nostr. Okay. Max Hillebrand and Jeff Gardner are behind this, apparently, because during an interview with Atlas 21, Max Hillebrand, which is founder of Sound Money Solutions, former CEO of ZK Snacks, and the figure behind the White Noise project, commented on the current limitations of private messaging and outlined the vision carried forward by the application launched together with developer Jeff Gardner. Quote, "Our main objective is to solve the current security and privacy problems related to private messaging on Nostr," he explained, highlighting the absence of robust encryption for groups and the danger of centralization in traditional platforms. According to Hillebrand, existing platforms like Signal have demonstrated the need for secure messaging tools, but have also shown limitations. Quote, "Signal has excellent encryption in traditional contexts, but the protocol is not scalable with large group chats." Quote, "This is where White Noise comes in, which is based on a combination of Nostr and the security offered by Messaging Layer Security, or MLS, a security protocol designed to provide efficient end-to-end encryption and to work on a large scale." Quote, "The encryption system used by White Noise," which is MLS, "is similar to that of Signal, but is more scalable. Its design was specifically studied for large groups, potentially even for millions of people. Specifically, to manage groups, MLS introduces a binary tree structure." Hopefully they'll explain that. "For the founder of Sound Money Solutions, White Noise's decentralized design will avoid the typical problems associated with centralization." Quote, "One of Signal's weaknesses is the need to have a phone number to register. If you only have a laptop, you can't create a Signal account. This limits privacy, makes the system dependent on centralized infrastructure, and is not scalable," the developer added. In contrast, Nostr uses public and private keys to identify users, eliminating the obligation to provide personal data. White Noise addresses the centralization issue by using decentralized relays to ensure message transmission. Thanks to the characteristics of the Nostr network, each group can define specific relays with the possibility of dynamic updates in case of censorship. Quote, "In case a message were censored by a relay, group members would not realize it, since the message would still be delivered through other relays," Hillebrand stated. Quote, "Anyone can manage a relay even on their own smartphone," end quote. For the former CEO of ZK Snacks, one of White Noise's objectives is to establish new standards for decentralized communication usable by other developers. Quote, "Our intent is to create an interoperable protocol. Anyone will be able to exploit it by implementing MLS for messaging. In the future, White Noise's functionalities could also be integrated into other popular apps. Quote, for example, the Nostr client Primal, They could integrate MLS and subsequently end users will be able to communicate with white noise users, end quote. Among the features planned for the app's future is integration with Bitcoin through Lightning Network and Nostr's apps. And this innovation will introduce native payments within chats, a functionality that currently competitors lack. Quote, we plan to add payments through LN, integrating money into a messaging platform radically changes the user experience. White Noise's code will be made public on GitHub. The app will be available on Nostr's App Store and once approved, also on the Google Play Store. For Apple devices, it can initially be downloaded via test flight and on Freedom Store, a new platform that allows installing apps without having to go through Apple's controls. I got to pause right there. Apple has already put the whammy back on Damus because Damus was supporting Zaps. This is an old story. Damus is the minute that JB55 introduced zapping on Damus, Apple immediately put the kibosh on it because they want 1/3 of all money. And if you don't do that, they basically take your app out of the store. So what happens when White Noise introduces Zaps? Are they going to still be on the Apple platform? Who knows? That's going to be a danger. And I wish that they would address it here. Maybe they will later. Who knows? Let's continue on. Regarding the European Chat Control 2.0 proposal, Hillebrand specified, we have no control over either the client or the server. By only publishing open source code on GitHub and not managing a backend, we are unable to intercept or modify users' messages. The architecture without backend, together with compliance and standards like MLS, eliminates any possibility of introducing backdoors or similar mechanisms, the developer argued. The project is still in alpha phase. Quote, the initial target audience will be Nostr users and Bitcoiners, but the goal is to make it accessible to everyone. We would like it to become a community tool for large groups, Telegram style, but with native encryption, explained the founder of Sound Money Solutions. Precisely for this reason, the team wants to gather feedback directly from the community. Quote, we aim to get feedback from the Bitcoin community and Nostr users in order to constantly improve White Noise, Hillebrand concluded. I'm really excited for this. I haven't seen it yet. I need to get my test flight up and get White Noise and see what this thing looks like. But if they can pull this off, this would be great because that it's not just DMs that suck. We don't have groups. There's a couple of Nostr clients that have tried. It does not work that well. So therefore, there's not a whole lot of adoption. If this works and it works well, it could be a game changer. I just hope there's a way for them to make it where it doesn't look like Telegram. I hate Telegram simply because of the way it's laid out, the way messages come. I can't be in a chat with 5,000 people and read the torrent of messages. I don't know how anybody does that shit. If you understand how people do that, please drop me a boost and tell me how, because I'm looking at some of these things in my Telegram going, y'all are insane. Smaller groups, not so bad. But there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. Moving on to The Block and Daniel Kuhn, who tells us that Coinbase has partnered with Perplexity AI on real-time crypto data services. Watch out. You thought the crypto bros and the chartalists were bad now? Oh, buddy, you ain't seen nothing yet. Coinbase has partnered with Perplexity AI on a real-time crypto data service, according to the announcement. The move marks the latest high-profile collaboration between leading blockchain and AI firms, like the deal between prediction market Polymarket and Elon Musk's XAI last month. And since the breakout success of OpenAI's ChatGPT, developers have been looking for ways to integrate crypto into AI and vice versa, usually aiming for enhanced automation. Automation of what, you ask? It's coming. Quote, I expect enhanced crypto functionality will be a catalyst for AI to achieve another 10x unlock. Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong wrote on X, quote, personally, I'm most excited to see crypto wallets fully integrated into LLMs one day. Okay. That will be a huge step towards a permissionless digital economy, end quote. The service will, quote, help traders get access to real-time trusted crypto data or information for better decision-making, Armstrong added. According to Armstrong, the relationship will advance through a series of phases, beginning with today, the integration of Coinbase's market data, including its Coin 50 index, into Perplexity to, quote, power market analysis. Users can double-click into price moves to help make better informed trade decisions, Armstrong said, pausing to remind everybody it's a casino. You do not have a system for roulette. You do not have a system for playing craps. You think you do, but you do not. That's not the fucking way it works. This is a giant casino, and now it's powered by AI. You thought people were going to get into trouble before. Again, you ain't seen nothing yet, because phase 2, which is expected to roll out soon, will feed Coinbase's market data as answers to Perplexity search queries and a conversational interface. Do you know what that means? When should I buy Doge, Perplexity? Perplexity, I'm thinking about taking out a 7th mortgage on my home to get into XRP. At what price should I do that? You see where this is going? The announcement comes on the heels of Bitcoin hitting a new all-time high above 112,000, which some analysts say could prefigure a higher move up, as well as more search interest. In Google, search interest, for instance, has been consistently higher month over month compared to the same period last year. So this is bad. Right? This I like artificial intelligence. I also understand why a lot of people hate it. There's good reasons to like it. There's even more reasons to hate it. But the reasons to hate it is not because of the technology of AI itself. It is the interface between humans and AI. There are some people that really think that they can just go to AI and say, give me plans for a 1-bedroom house and a list of materials. And if they were to act on the answer given by such an inane question, they would just essentially be putting money into a brown paper bag, dousing it with diesel, lighting it on fire, and throwing it out the window. That is a cheap way to use a tool. It's like using a hammer to crush rock. No, dude, you want to crush rock, use a tool to crush rock with. A hammer is built for sure, you can crush a couple of rocks with a hammer, but it's really built to nail nails into wood. And you can do all kinds of neat stuff with that, but crushing rock with a hammer is about as dumb as, well, crushing rock with a hammer. Now, the other side is forming a long-term knowledge base of how to interact with AI, what kinds of questions to ask, what kinds of questions you want it to ask you to figure things out. And then in the back of your mind, you're always going, this is probably wrong, but at least it gives me a place to start on whatever it is that I want to do. It's like people that use Wikipedia to look up a definition or something about a thing, like they want to know more about the F-35. I don't blame people for going to Wikipedia first. It's, in some cases, some of these articles are not only well written, they're well documented. And if you go and look at the index or the bibliography of where information in the article came from, you can go right to the source. And if you go to the bibliographies of those sources, you see how this works. You actually have to do the work with AI. No, not anymore. No, you can trade all fucking day with Doge by using Perplexity and Brian Armstrong's simple-minded frickin' thinking that just by plugging trading data into an AI that is going to make people wealthy beyond their wildest imaginations without any repercussions whatsoever. This is the kind of mentality that we have continued to deal with for well over a decade in this space, and it's not going to slow down. That said, let's just give a couple of announcements before we leave the show. KULR Technology has increased their Bitcoin holdings to $101 million. The announcement was made as it expanded its Bitcoin treasury to $101 million after acquiring $10 million of additional Bitcoin at an average price of $108,884. So they've made out like bandits so far. The company's total Bitcoin holdings have risen to 1,021 Bitcoin. I'm trying to see if they've got a per coin average price, and I don't really see it. But so KULR has increased their Bitcoin holdings, and on to K-Wave, which is a media company in Korea. They've raised $1 billion for their Bitcoin treasury. Now, I brought you this news. Let me get back over here to my search. I brought you something about K-Wave in episode 1108. So quite more than 4 or 5 weeks ago, we were talking about K-Wave and that they were, let's see here. What were they doing? They had committed $500 million to Bitcoin. And yeah, that's $500 million is nothing to sneeze at. And again, that was weeks ago. In episode 1108 of BitcoinAnd. Well, now they've raised $1 billion for their Bitcoin treasury, so twice as much. 5 weeks later, K-Wave Media Incorporated announced a $500 million convertible note agreement with Anson Funds to support its Bitcoin treasury strategy. The financing follows an earlier $500 million standby equity purchase agreement with Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, bringing the company's total capital capacity to $1 billion. As part of the Anson agreement, K-Wave will issue $15 million in senior secured convertible notes and warrants in the first tranche. Under the terms of the deal, at least 80% of the net proceeds will be used to purchase Bitcoin. K-Wave confirmed that it had already acquired 88 Bitcoin. So 5 weeks ago or whatever, it was $500 million. They've added another $500 million, and they've secured it, and they've already secured Bitcoin. It just doesn't look like anything stops this train. So anyway, just a reminder, I'm working furiously on the materials for articles and other outputting forms of the Cathedral Project. I hope you guys go to BitcoinAndShow.com, sign up for the newsletter, which is where a lot of these communications is going to come from. This thing is huge. Talking about 1,000 acres. That's like half a mile on a side. So think of a square of land that's like 1/2 mile by 1/2 mile. That's 1,000 acres. I'm talking about thousands of trees. I'm talking about like over 640 acres of pure grazing capacity. I'm talking about God only knows how many species of trees, shrubs. Talking about integrations of biochar manufacture, earthworm, the raising of earthworms, the raising of dung beetles, aquaponics, greenhouses, heat capture from the biochar manufacturing process, syngas piped into generators to run Bitcoin mining and other things on the farm. That biochar being put back into the farm soils for reasons that I've discussed on several occasions, but it's all going to come out. I've got to get this out of my head. It's driving me nuts, but a lot of it makes sense. And it's not because I'm brilliant. It's just, I don't know. Like the universe was like, I'm going to pick on you. I'm going to put this idea in your head and it's going to drive you insane. And you're going to have no choice but to actually get it out to people. And yes, they're going to think you're crazy too. So congratulations that you got this idea, Dave. Have fun with it. Well, I can't stop thinking about it. To me, this is the way that we take things like completely denuded and blown out hay fields that have been depleted of their biology and their minerals for like decades and decades and completely rebuild it. A farm for 1,000 years. A farm that supports more than one family for generations. It's long-term thinking applied to land. Bitcoiners have gotten used to long-term thinking. Now this is why one of the reasons why I named it Cathedral. All the cathedrals of Europe that were built, and even some of the ones that were built early on in the United States, took over 100 years to complete. Some of them took 250. The people that started breaking ground on a cathedral in like 1700, they knew that they would never see anywhere close to the completion of that project. Why were they working on it outside of just getting paid? Some of these guys were like hardcore artisans. What drove them to work on such a project other than just the paycheck? Something else drove them. They were thinking in a different way. We've got to get that back. Otherwise, we're going to just drown in strip malls, ugly clothes, and shitty food. This cannot go on. And like all these people that say, "Oh, we can't go on." Well, then do something. Even if I'm never going to be able to purchase 1,000 acres of land. It's just not going to happen for me. But that doesn't mean that I can't get this idea out of my head. Give it to somebody else who maybe they can do something with it. Maybe a group of people come together and modify it to the point that a part of it works. I don't know. That's not the point. It's got to get out of my head. Otherwise, I'm going to end up in an asylum, and I don't want to end up in an asylum, or God forbid, homeless living under a bridge in Los Angeles or something like that. That doesn't sound very pleasurable either. Only a hermitage in the Southwest Colorado mountains would actually be okay, even though that's not optimal. But be on the lookout for Cathedral 1,000 acre years, because that's the unit that I'm designating. It's 1 acre over 1 year. Like light year, it's a measure of distance. It's not a measure of speed. I put this out on Nostr yesterday. Cow day is not a measure of time. It's a measure of consumption. Acre feet is a measure of volume of water. It's not has anything to do with area. But I've never heard of acre year. What can be done on an acre over a year? What can be done on 1,000 acres over 1,000 years? I'm going to show you the whole thing, and I'll see you on the other side. This has been BitcoinAnd, and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.